What's the difference between a frost and a freeze? Well, a frost affects the outside of the plants, and whereas a freeze will actually affect the internal parts of a plant. As you can see, it's cold here now. I've got my toque on, and we've had our first frost this fall. Normally it's the middle of September, so we actually had our first frost about 5 days ago, October 13th, which is almost a whole month past our average first frost. So we've had a really nice fall this year, but now it's time to start getting things put away. Now, once you've had your first frost, that doesn't necessarily mean your garden's done for the winter. There are things that are what's called frost hardy or frost tender. Of course, a frost tender will die when it hits with a frost, but any sort of frost hardy plant will come back from those frosts. And I have some footage here from our first frost I will put in to show you what happens when we get our frost and then what happens in the afternoon once we've warmed up. It's finally happened and we've had our first frost. It is October 13th today, so we're pretty late compared to our normal frosts, but it's always sad. You can see over here, while you don't see any frost left on these plants, you can just tell like with how limp they are. And if you feel them, they're kind of squishy. Those are just gonna basically rot if you left them. Now, some of these tomatoes are still gonna be okay. These tomatoes still look okay. Thankfully, I picked most what I could find yesterday, but these guys down here, might be hard to tell on the camera, but they are frozen. You can kind of see this one, it looks a little bit weird. So we did have some frost damage on the tomatoes, but that's okay. You can see too the discoloration here. I'll just pick those and feed them to the pigs. I'm overwhelmed with tomatoes anyways. But even this is Swiss chard. It can handle a light frost. So it's got frost on it, but I'll come out and see later and hopefully that sun will melt it and it'll perk back up. And the beets as well, they might come back up. Even up here in my raised beds, which things up higher, as you can see, like it's low and then ground. We come way up here, is frosted. So it was definitely a hard-hitting frost. Now these radishes should be okay, and these carrots actually didn't really get much damage at all. So we'll see. We'll come out later when the sun comes back, breaks out and warms everything up, and we'll see exactly how everything's gonna fare once that sun comes up here. We'll see. So the strawberries that were frosted over this morning are fine, but you go over to these ground cherries and you can see they are what's called frost tender. The frost just killed them off. Well, strawberries, which are frost hardy, are still fine. They've thawed off very well. The kale, even though it was all frosted this morning, has perked right back up. Won't have any damage to the leaves, and it will be fine to keep harvesting off of. Then we go over to tomatoes, which are frost tender. And you can see that they have all died. So that's the difference between frost hardy and frost tender. These marigolds look okay. There is some damage. And then we go to the Swiss chard, which again was frosted and laying over limp this morning. It's perked right back up. Even the end, which I thought maybe was a bit damaged, is okay. Continue harvesting that, and as well as the beets. The beets perked right back up. They are frost hardy, and we'll be able to keep eating beets. As you can see, carrots look fine, and the radishes are all bounced right back. Everything looks good. Even the little guys are good. And over here, even though this spinach was really small, it's fine. Once once we've been hit with the frost in our garden, doesn't mean that the garden's over for the winter. We're going to clean up all the things that have died, pick the frost tender things, and then anything frost hardy, I'm just going to leave until we get our freeze. Because once we get a hard freeze, then nothing is going to grow after that. And there are a few things that we can plant in the fall, like we put our garlic, our hardneck garlic goes in the ground in the fall, and any sort of fall bulbs that you want to plant. And this year I'm going to be experimenting with something called fall sowing, where I put seeds down now and they're going to overwinter, and then in the spring, hopefully they'll come up a little bit earlier than everything else. Stay tuned for those videos, and thank you so much for watching. We'll see you next time.